What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. And before I get to what I'm going to be talking about in this episode of Joe Winko Talk, I just want to announce that it's October, so you guys all know what that means. Yep, the candy corn. You cannot have October without candy corn. I cannot have October without candy corn. I know I said quite a few times that I was actually getting tired of candy corn, but to be completely honest with you, I'm always going to love candy corn. You can't have October without it. So yeah, the candy corn. So this episode of Joe Winko Talk is going to be about an interesting topic. It might be a tad bit controversial, honestly, and based on what I saw online of the people reacting to this, I might have an unpopular opinion based on the reactions I saw online, honestly, among them at least. But personally, I thought it was pretty interesting, and I'm pretty sure it's because of my autism mind, but overall, I thought it was pretty interesting. This episode of Joe Winko Talk is going to be about this video I found online of a girl, or a two-spirit person, as I like to call them, named Dee Whitnell. Oh, like Harlan Whitnell from Call of the Scarecrow. It's a video that she posted of herself talking about gender seasons, which I thought was very interesting. The pronouns that she actually prefers are they pronouns, but she says that she goes by any pronouns, or they said that they go by any pronouns. Just throwing that out there. Which is okay, really. So I'm going to be reacting to the video, not going to be watching the whole entire video that she did. I'll have the link to it in the pinned comments of this one because I really want you guys to go over and watch it yourselves. But I'm going to be reacting to parts of the video, so let's watch them right now.
Can your gender change from season to season? Hi, I'm Dee, my pronouns are they, them, but I also go by any pronouns, and today's video is inspired by an ex of mine who used to say to me, why does your gender change so dramatically season to season? For a lot of trans and non-binary individuals, you may also find yourself changing or exploring your expression or gender identity depending on the season. For myself, I feel more masculine in the summertime. I wear more masculine clothing, I wear shorts, I normally have my hair up more, and I just feel more boy. Whereas in the wintertime, for some reason, girl mode comes out and I'm loving skirts and dresses and having my hair down. This might be because in the summertime I get sensory issues because of the heat, so I wear my hair up and I wear less clothing. Whereas in the winter I'm in multiple layers, so I can wear stuff that is a bit more girly or girl coded or a bit more frilly because I can experiment with the layers to make it a combination of masc and femme that suits me. For a lot of individuals, they are the opposite. I know so many trans and non-binary individuals who are fluid, as I am, with their gender identity and expression, who find themselves being more feminine in the summertime and more masculine in the wintertime. And regardless of which one you are, if you're masc in the summer or masc in the winter, or femme in the summer or femme in the winter, that's totally valid and completely up to you. Did you know, however, there is a gender identity that is linked to the seasons? This is called gender season.
Interesting.
And this is a gender identity I've only just learned about. It's a micro-identity. It's not an identity that I have ever heard discussed before. It's a new one for me. So if anybody knows anything more about gender season, please let me know because I am new to this identity. But from what I know, gender season is an individual who explores the gender identity in relation to a season or all the seasons. So this might be somebody whose gender expression and identity is linked to one season, so for example, winter. Or this might be somebody whose gender identity and expression changes depending on the season.
Alright, so that's the parts of the video I'm going to be reacting to. I'll have the whole video linked in the pinned comments so you guys can go to her channel and check it out for yourselves. But yeah, that was it. She was talking about the gender seasons, which is something that I myself never heard of before, honestly. You learn something new every day. Now, before I get to what I personally think of all this, I'm first going to start with other people's reaction to this because there were a whole lot of people talking about this online. That's kind of how I found it. But there were tons of people reacting to this and talking about it online. Most of the comments and reactions that people made towards this were not very nice at all. Not very supportive or open-minded. Lots of people actually seemed to get upset by this, and quite a few people were bashing her or them and calling her or them crazy for this. And as you guys all should know of what I think of the word crazy, personally, I think there's nothing negative and nothing wrong with being crazy, just as long as you're not harming anyone. So I find nothing negative about things that are crazy or nothing negative about crazy itself. I obviously think that way because of my autism mind, but the people who are bashing D were obviously meaning crazy in a negative way. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, I guess. Obviously, the far right people and the religious people and the Christian people were getting upset about this and were getting mad about this and were getting weirded out by this. I saw one video, and quite a few videos really, but I saw one video of one guy who was this like religious Jesus loving guy who was saying that we should pray for people like D. Whitnell, and he was saying, we should pray for people like this because they are suffering. God made women and men, and that's how God made us. He made no mistakes at all. And he was saying that this is all against God's plans and shit like that. You know what religious people say. And he was basically trying to talk about D like they're crazy and like they have some serious mental problems just because they think that your gender can change with the season, or they think that well, technically not even that your gender expression, how you choose to express your gender, can change with the season. And we're saying that it's all against God's plan and everything, and saying how this is sacrilegious and stuff like that. And then the whole entire time I'm just thinking, dude, you know that you sound just as crazy as the girl in the video I just reacted to, with you saying, oh, this is against God's plan, God made man and woman. I mean, seriously. Who the hell knows what God wants, honestly? I personally believe that God's more lenient. God probably wanted them or they or she to be like this on purpose with this creative mind and everything like that, but I'm going to be getting back to that later. So it was pretty obvious what the religious people would say about this whole gender seasons thing, but I actually first saw this when I was watching videos from Blaire White. She's a transsexual girl that I watch on YouTube, and I absolutely love Blaire White. Really, because she reminds me of a Barbie doll I used to have back when I was a kid, honestly. And also because she's pretty and she's adorable. I mean, how can you not love Blaire White? I do agree with some of the stuff that Blaire White says from time to time, and I also disagree with some of the stuff Blaire White says from time to time. Either way, I still love Blaire White because she's awesome. Even though I definitely don't agree with her political views because she's a Trump supporter, I still love Blaire White either way. I also don't agree with the political views of Elon Musk, yet I still have sexual fantasies about him and still have a thing for Elon Musk, and will basically always have a thing for Elon Musk, but I prefer to get with an Elon Musk lookalike instead because it would be too awkward if I was with the real Elon Musk. But to get back to what I was talking about, that's how I first found out about this whole gender seasons video because Blaire White was actually reacting to it. And her reaction was actually kind of funny. I mean, she was sitting there watching Dee's video, and Dee was going like, "Can your gender change with the season? This is something I absolutely relate to because I myself am a gender fluid person, but my gender just so happens to change with the season. During the summer, I feel more masculine. I wear shorts and I have my hair up. And this is because of the gender seasons. But during the winter, girl mode comes out and I wear my hair down and I'm able to experiment with layers. I like to wear my skirts during the winter and I like to wear my dresses during the winter. And this is all tied to the gender seasons. Do you know, however, that there is a gender that's linked to the seasons and influenced by the seasons? This is known as gender seasons." And then Blaire White was just like, is it linked to the seasons or is it just brain rot? I mean, come on. You guys are trading pronouns and genders like Pokemon cards. Is this actually a real person or is this some dynamic AI robot? Let me tell you this right now. This girl is one step away from snapping, and it might even be linked to the seasons she's tied to. I mean, like, totally. That kind of made me laugh a bit. I'll have a link to Blaire White's video about this in the pinned comments as well if you guys want to watch it. But personally, I thought that that was very cool, honestly. Now, those of you who know me well enough will probably have already figured out how I feel about this by now, honestly. Now, I myself consider myself to be a very unique person. Yeah, I'm absolutely strange, but I stay true to myself and don't care what people think of me. That's honestly how I feel everyone should be, really. And personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with being strange or unique. I actually thought this whole gender seasons thing was really cool. I actually liked the whole gender season thing that Dee was talking about, and I liked watching that video and hearing her describe the gender seasons because I thought it sounded very interesting and very creative, like hearing her discuss the gender seasons and everything. And you know, this honestly does seem like something that's legitimate. I mean, well, it honestly is something that's legitimate because I definitely do believe that there's actually people like this. Dee herself or themselves even said that they aren't gender seasoned at all. They are just gender fluid and it just so happens that they feel more masculine during the summer and more feminine during the winter. But I definitely do believe that there's actually people who are of the gender seasons, and I think that's really interesting, and I think that's really cool as well. I know it's psychological, but I also believe that it's spiritual as well, and I'll be getting to that very soon. But on the psychological part, there really are people who have like seasonal depression and everything. Back when I was living in Wisconsin, I used to be I hated living in Wisconsin. I always hated living in Wisconsin. But like during the winter, I would always get depressed. It's cold, it's snowy and everything. Even though I always spend all my time inside during the summer even, like I never liked the winters in Wisconsin. Even where I live in Florida, it gets cold because I live in northern Florida, but it's not nearly as bad as Wisconsin, really. But yeah, like I would always notice that my mood would change with the seasons, honestly, with seasonal depression and stuff like that. That really is a real thing because I myself lived through it and still somewhat live through it right now. So gender seasons is just as valid, except it sounds a lot cooler than seasonal depression. Now, I know some of you guys may be thinking this, but don't get me wrong. I myself, personally, I like staying the same all the time. Me, shirtless, the red pointy bandana, sometimes wearing the cape if it's a serious video, sometimes adding in an accessory here and there. And I myself like to stay consistent, and that's just what I prefer. I know it's my autism mind that makes me feel that way and shapes me that way, but that's just how I am. I like staying persistent. But some people are not like that. They like to change it up every now and then. And actually, most people aren't like that at all. And that's okay, because that's what makes us unique, and that's what makes me unique as well. Basically, what I was trying to say there is that I'm not gender seasons at all, and I'm not gender fluid myself at all. I'm 100% male, and I always identify as male. But it's okay if someone is gender fluid and does like switch their genders and feels that way and everything. I mean, if it's something that makes you happy and if it's not harming anyone, it's okay. But for some reason, a lot of people are making a big deal out of it and getting upset by it, because if you try searching gender seasons, you'll find a bunch of videos of people reacting to Dee's video and talking about how crazy it sounds and how ridiculous and how out there it is. And I will admit, it is out there, but it's nothing really negative, honestly. And if you've actually seen my gender fluid sexual fantasy episode, a Joe Winko Talk, that I did way back in year 2022, I'll have a link to that in the pinned comments. That one is definitely a steamy episode of Joe Winko Talk. You would all know exactly how I feel about people who are gender fluid, honestly. I mean, I am a gold star gay guy, but I don't mind being with someone who's gender fluid. I mean, I would still consider myself a gold star gay guy for being with someone who's gender fluid. Just as long as that gender fluid person has a Y chromosome, honestly. And just as long as when they're in their female form, they don't look too much like a female. Otherwise, it would get too awkward. Sorry if that's offensive, but just saying, that's just my personal preference, and nothing wrong with that either. But the Native American people believed that transsexual people and or gender fluid people were magical. They referred to them as two-spirit people, honestly. They believed that they had like two souls inhabiting their body, like a masculine soul and a feminine soul that were intertwined with each other inside one body, and they believed that they were magical. And I think that's really cool, honestly. Native American is actually one of the things I'm mixed with. So yeah, I definitely do believe that gender fluid people are magical. And it's not like they're harming anyone, at least like in this case, they're not harming anyone. So I'm not sure why so many people are getting upset by it. Now, I will admit, I do somewhat understand Blaire White, why she got a bit upset by it, because I've seen quite a few videos of Blaire White, and I do love Blaire White, but the thing with her is, it seems like she doesn't view gender fluid and as the same as transsexual, which I agree with her on. Gender fluid and transsexual are definitely not the same. I mean, Blaire White is full-blown transsexual, well, absolutely full-blown transsexual, which is obviously different from a gender fluid person. And my best guess is that the reason why Blaire is upset by this is because, she thinks that people aren't going to be taking, the full-blown transsexual people seriously because of this, really. I mean, that's my best way of explaining it because of my autism. So I understand why she's upset, but I mean, they should take the full-on transsexual people seriously, but they should also take this seriously as well. I mean, well, not that they should take, I mean, they just shouldn't mind it at all, really. So someone wants to dress as a girl during the winter and dress as a guy during the summer. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all. They want to call themselves a girl during the winter. They want to call themselves a guy during the summer. I mean, generally thinking of that, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, there are some specifics that could go weird or something like that, my best way of explaining it. But when you generally think of it that way, there's nothing wrong with it at all, really. Not sure if I worded that right, but I hope you guys get what I mean. That's why I kind of felt like this episode of Joe Winko Talk might be a tad bit controversial to some people. Another thing that people tend to get mad about a lot are pronouns, really. Like if a gender fluid or transsexual person prefers a certain pronoun, but when people call them by the wrong pronouns, they get really upset by it in the TikTok videos and stuff like that. Which I understand, like, some people would get upset by if they, like, if you are, like, out, you don't know if a person's, like, transsexual or, like, they haven't, like, fully transitioned and aren't fully passing as the gender or sex they want to be, and you call them the wrong pronoun. Depending on how they react to that, if they, like, snap at you and are very rude about it, then, I mean, you don't have to do that. But if they're like really polite and kind about it and say, oh, can you please call me this instead? Then that's okay, really. That's something you shouldn't get upset about, really. If someone is being polite and kind and telling you the pronouns they prefer to be called. It's just like someone telling you the name they prefer to be called, really. Like Whoopi Goldberg, for example. Her name is Whoopi Goldberg, but her birth name, I believe, was Carolyn Johnson. But you don't call her Carolyn Johnson, you call her Whoopi Goldberg, and I love Whoopi Goldberg, by the way. So even if I ended up falling in love with a gender fluid man, and he was in his female stage, or female phase, or female gender for the time, then I would just try to remember to call them by their proper pronouns for that phase, really. Sometimes I may slip up, I will admit, but yeah, most of the time they don't really get upset by that from my experience with talking to people who are transsexual or gender fluid. Just try to be respectful, that's all it is. Another thing that I wanted to touch up on is I know that Jeffree Star, I mean, he's one person I heard about on YouTube, not exactly sure what they do, but I heard that one person named Jeffree Star said that it was stupid that people started coming up with wanting to be called by the they, them pronouns, like people who don't want to be called he or she, they want to be referred to as they and them. But I myself actually think that's very cool, and this is definitely because of my strange imagination due to my autism mind. But when I hear of someone who wants to go by the they, them pronouns, I imagine that their body is like a Power Ranger Megazord, that their body is a Power Ranger Megazord that's being controlled by a team of Power Rangers inside their brain, not a team of Power Rangers that infiltrated their, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that word right, but I hope you guys know what word I'm looking for. Not a team of Power Rangers who infiltrated their brains or invaded their brains, but a team of Power Rangers that were always inside their brains and are naturally part of their brains and were always naturally part of their brains. And that their body is a Megazord and the Power Rangers are multiple beings inside their brains controlling them, hence calling them by the they, them pronouns. Not exactly sure if that made sense to people, but I hope you guys get what I mean. But seriously, I'm not being sarcastic at all. When the hell am I ever sarcastic? But seriously, I'm not being sarcastic at all. That's seriously what I imagine, and that's kind of what I believe in, really. I mean, I don't think there's literal Power Rangers inside their brain, not physical ones, but spiritual ones, or a spiritual team inside people's brains who prefer the they, them pronouns. I just know that there's one person watching this video who thinks I'm absolutely crazy, And you're not too far off, really, but life would be so boring if I was a sane person, really. And there's nothing wrong with that. Not being a sane person. There's nothing wrong with that. I myself believe that people should be every single color that they are. I mean, like, it is a somewhat of a gray area. I mean, for example, like, in case you guys are wondering how I feel about this with the whole, like, transsexual thing, I don't think that minors should go on hormones or have gender reassignment surgery. There's actually a lot of reasons for that, that you should wait till you're an adult to go through with all that. But I think if you're an adult and you're old enough to think for yourself after you turn 18, then you absolutely should have that option if you really do feel that that's right for you. But getting back to the whole gender season thing, I don't know what the problem is. I'm not sure why so many people are getting upset by this. So many people from all different sides are getting upset by the whole gender seasons thing, because it's not hurting anyone. I mean, she or them or they, she or they are not harming anyone. They're just putting out the gender seasons. And I really do believe that there's people who do have gender seasons or who are gender seasoned. Their seasons change with the gender. I mean, their genders change with the seasons. That's what I meant to say. And so you want to dress like a boy during the summer. You want to dress like a girl during the winter. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's obviously not harming anyone, so I don't get what the big deal is, honestly. And, you know, it actually makes life, and it honestly makes the world more interesting and more diverse, which is always fun, honestly. I mean, who has anything against that? Well, what the hell am I saying? Lots of people have stuff against that. But seriously, no one should have anything against that. Variety is the spice of life. That is so 1990s. But true. I even remember hearing in one video of this one guy who saw the whole gender seasons video by D. I remember he said that he was like really concerned about this and that we're normalizing mental illness, that we're like normalizing mental illness like that's a bad thing, honestly. Well, guess what? 80% of the fucking population has a mental illness, honestly. A mental illness or a mental condition, whatever term you want to use. And as long as you're not harming anyone, it's okay, and there's nothing wrong with it, really. And I think that we should make people more aware of people's mental conditions. Like autism, for example. I mean, if I would have been born back in the 1970s or the 1980s or the 1990s, my whole autism mind, I mean, like, technically I have Asperger's, but I use the term autism because I like that word better and people are more familiar with it. Autism is a spectrum. Like, usually when people think of someone with autism, they think of someone with a, how do I say this, a very extreme case of autism, as in they don't talk at all or they don't understand facial expressions or anything, but I understand facial expressions, and obviously I do talk, so autism is on a spectrum. However, I don't go out to bars or nightclubs like normal people my age actually do, and I talk to all my friends online, and I'm more of a loner and an outcast, and I have difficulties with some stuff that normal people don't usually have difficulties with, and my mind functions quite differently from the typical way normal-minded people's minds function. And to be completely honest, the most difficult part of having autism, I don't view myself as a flawed person, honestly. I mean, the most difficult part of having autism is the way normal people react to it, really. That's the most difficult part from having autism. The outside, not me, the inside. It's the outside, really. Hope that made sense to all of you. And another video that I found of someone reacting to this was one guy was actually completely weirded out by this, as most of the reaction videos I saw were. One guy was actually weirded out by this, and he was saying, "Oh, so now we have gender seasons? What about what if your season is tied to the phases of the moon? You know how crazy that sounds?" And I remember when I was actually watching that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's a cool idea. What if there was a gender that was linked to the phases of the moon?" I mean, like, say a person, like, basically by gender, they mean the way you dress and everything. That's basically what she was talking about, D, and basically what I'm talking about as well. Like, but say that a person felt that their gender or gender expression, that's a term I should be using because that's technically the term that she was using. That was the term that she was using. Say that their gender expression was linked to the phases of the moon. As the moon gets full, they start dressing more and more feminine. And as the moon is completely full, they're completely feminine. And then as the moon goes into a new moon, as the moon starts waning, they start getting more and more masculine. And then when it's a complete new moon, they're full-blown masculine dressed and guy dressed up like, and whatever term you want to use to describe that. I actually thought that'd be very interesting because, like, I myself, I practice witchcraft spells a lot, and I cast love spells and things like that. And the best times to cast a love spell is while the moon is waxing, while the moon is growing into a full moon, because when the moon is waxing, that's when you cast spells to bring something into your life. And when the moon is waning, that's when you cast spells to get things out of your life. And I'm typically not good at following the moon phases at all. I mean, it just gets annoying having to type in what is today's moon phase and going on Google search and looking for, like, today's moon phase. Is it like a waxing, or is it a waning moon, or is it a full moon, or is it a new moon? However, if I knew someone who had a gender that was linked to the phases of the moon, I would imagine that would be a person who studies the moon phases and keeps up on the moon phases very, very well. And for some reason, I'm imagining that same person would be posting a new selfie on Instagram all the time to show off the new outfit they're wearing for the day. And all I have to do is just check their page on Instagram, and I'm like, okay, I wonder what the face of the moon is. And then I see a picture of their outfit on Instagram, and I'm like, oh, that looks very feminine. Oh, it must be a waxing moon. Time to cast my love spells. However, there is the chance that a mistake could be made. The person whose gender is tied to the moon phases might accidentally put on the wrong outfit because they mistakenly read the moon phase. Really. But I'm kind of overthinking it, but I mean, if someone seriously wants to do that, that's okay, really. But with that and this whole gender seasons thing, one thing that I would really want to pay attention to is, like, if I ever met a person who was gender seasons and, like, became close to them, like, not even, like, intimate love partners or anything, but, like, friends with them, like, I would be curious to how long they would keep that up for. I mean, I imagine the whole gender seasons, I would imagine most of the time that would just be a phase for someone or something like that. But there's a chance that they really are tied to that, like, definitely tied to that. And it'd be really interesting being friends with someone over the years and watching them keep up the gender seasons cycle over and over again, year after year. That would be really cool, honestly, and see how they change it up and everything. As I said, I'm a fan for unique and interesting and strange stuff. And I don't mean strange in a bad way, because it really isn't bad at all. But I'm not exactly sure why everyone is acting like it is. Okay, so people like dressing like girls during the winter, or like dressing like guys during the summer. I mean, come on, really. I actually think that would be really cool and impressive if someone kept that up for multiple years. The whole gender season thing. I mean, if they were really liking it and having fun with it and weren't just doing it for peer pressure and were doing it because they themselves identified with it, I mean, that would be really interesting to watch that evolve over time, honestly. And there's actually one other thing that I want to touch up on, since I'm talking about this in an episode of Joe Winko Talk, with the whole gender identity and stuff like that and everything. I feel that, like, nowadays it's become like controversial, the whole transsexuals issue, like, I mean, the way people see it as an issue and everything, and like how people are getting annoyed with gender identities and everything like that. But I feel like if we didn't have these gender norms, that we wouldn't have these gender problems. That's my best way of wording it. We wouldn't have like these gender problems or gender identity problems all over the place that people are getting so upset about. We wouldn't have them very often. Like, for example, back when I was a little kid, back when I was like 4 or 5 years old, literally, I wanted to be a Powerpuff Girl for Halloween. And this was when I was living with my stupid adoptive parents in fucking Wisconsin. And now, some of you guys may get upset for me for saying this, but my adoptive mother was a controlling, conniving bitch. I'm going to straight up say that. For those of you who don't think that she deserves to be called that, watch my 2014 suicide story, Deaths of Joe Winko episode. I'll have that linked in the pinned comments as well. Oh, and that's just one example. But I remember when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I wanted to be a Powerpuff Girl for Halloween, and I asked my adoptive parents to buy me a Powerpuff Girl costume. Like, yeah, I knew it was for girls, but I didn't see why a boy couldn't wear one, why I couldn't wear one. And my adoptive mother, I remember I asked her for a costume so many damn times, and my adoptive mother was just being a fucking bitch the whole entire time, telling me, no, Joe, you have a penis and you're not wearing a Powerpuff Girl costume. It's not because I have a penis, it's because I have a bitch for an adoptive mother. That's why I didn't get to wear a Powerpuff Girl costume. If you said that to a kid nowadays, however, that wouldn't fly well at all. With what my adoptive mother said, you have a penis and you can't wear a Powerpuff Girl costume, that would not fly well nowadays, because then I would probably be thinking that I was transsexual and that I needed to change. But I mean, if it's just something like that, you just want to wear a Powerpuff Girl costume, then just let the guy wear a Powerpuff Girl costume. Nothing wrong with that. They don't have to turn into a girl, honestly, and go on hormones or anything like that. And don't get me wrong, if someone born male really feels like they're transsexual and really has body dysphoria, and that's something they're really going through, they absolutely should be able to go on hormones and everything. But if they just want to wear a Powerpuff Girl costume, they shouldn't be told that they're transsexual and things like that. Some people watching this video may think that I'm contradicting myself, but it makes perfect sense to me. I mean, someone who really has true gender dysphoria and truly is transsexual and truly wants to change their gender should be given the option to, as long as they're over 18 and old enough to. But if you're just a male who wants to dress in a girl costume, you should be able to do that without having your parents tell you, no, you have a penis and you're a boy, you can't wear a Powerpuff Girl costume. I never forgot about that, and that's just one of the things I hold against my adoptive mother. That was a real bitch thing to say. I'm gonna straight up say it because it's absolutely true, and it pisses me off thinking about that to this day, even all these years later. Just one of the things that she did that pissed me off. Gosh, that's not even the only thing, but if I said all the bad stuff my adoptive mother did, this video would be way too long. And on top of that, another thing is when I became a teenager, I always wanted to dress in pink, but my stupid adoptive mother wouldn't let me dress in pink. That's kind of how I got into the color red instead. So there's one other thing I wanted to close out this video on. This is another part of the video from Dee, a part of the video where she says something that's very important about all this. Let me play it right now.
You are somebody whose gender identity or expression changes with the season. That's completely valid too. Why not look into gender season? Or if you're like me and you're just fluid with your identity and your expression, just have fun with it.
Alright, hear what she said right there? Or if you're someone like me, just have fun with it? Yeah, just have fun with it. I mean, that's the whole thing. It brings joy to the person. I mean, they like dressing like a girl during the winter, they like dressing like a boy during the summer, and there's nothing wrong with that at all because it's the gender seasons. Exactly like she said, the gender seasons. And I think that's very cool, I think that's very creative, and I think that's very interesting. And as I said earlier, getting back to that whole religious guy saying, oh, God made man and woman, well, this is what I personally think. I feel that God or the universe, whatever you want to refer to God as, created the person in that video who I just reacted to, created them with this creative mind and created a whole bunch of other people with a creative mind to not like lump them into a category, really. I mean, if they want to be gender fluid or gender seasons or gender moon phases, whatever you want to go on, I mean, that's okay, really. As long as they're not harming anyone or doing anything bad, that's okay, really. And obviously she's not doing anything bad. I mean, she's just saying that she likes dressing like a girl during the winter and dressing like a boy during the summer. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. And I think it's really cool. And if it makes you happy, it makes you happy and you should do it and have fun with it. Because there's too much negativity in the world nowadays, and if that brings joy to someone, just let them have it, really. Another thing is, I really think that people just need to focus on themselves, really. Like all the people who are bashing her for it and calling her crazy for it. I mean, if you don't like something, just move on. That's exactly what I do. I mean, I focus on myself pretty often. Like you don't see me like bashing people for bad stuff unless they're doing something bad directly to me, honestly. That's when I start bashing other people, but I don't just like go out of my way to like bash or criticize someone, really. I rarely do that to someone who isn't interacting with me at all. But I thought this would be a really interesting topic to talk about in an episode of Joe Winko Talk. And in addition to that, I was actually planning on creating a family in The Sims 4. That's a game I haven't played in a maddeningly long time. I was planning on creating a family in The Sims 4 who have gender seasons. Because I actually do have The Sims 4 seasons. And with The Sims 4, it allows your Sims to dress up in male or female outfits, to, like regardless of the Sims like sex you assign them to have or gender you assign them to have. It allows them to dress in male or female outfits, which is really interesting and really cool how they added that in. But I thought that would be an interesting idea to have a Sims 4 family with gender seasons. Like when the seasons change in The Sims 4, the Sims that I have in the family, they go from dressing like guys to dressing like girls, back to dressing like guys for the next season. I just thought that would be interesting, honestly. I might actually end up doing that eventually. And that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. Please let me know what you think of everything I talked about in this episode of Joe Winko Talk. Yeah, I know some of it was a bit controversial, really. I mean, may seem a bit controversial, but in all honesty, most of it wasn't. So yeah. And the whole point of my YouTube videos is share what goes on inside my autism mind and share what I think of stuff and really, but I know I had an unpopular opinion for thinking the gender seasons was cool based on all the reaction videos I saw of people talking about it. But I like what Dee said. I think what Dee said about gender seasons was really interesting and really cool. And as I said, if it makes you happy, have fun with it. Exactly as she said. So yeah. So that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. Please let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr, or X. Yeah, I keep calling it Twitter, honestly. And don't forget to subscribe to me on Rumble, BitChute, and Odysee because YouTube is getting stupid with their rules on what you can and can't talk about and shit like that, honestly. And we need to end YouTube's whole video streaming monopoly that they have because it's getting really annoying. So that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. Peace out, people.